Hey cousins.
Hey y'all.
So we're back with episode 2. Today we are going to be talking about your partner's past. Like, is that an essential part of the relationship? Is it the key to a successful relationship? Or is it just something you think you just don't really need to know? So, before we jump in, make sure you guys
like, share, comment, subscribe.
Come on, like, share, comment. Y'all better share the videos with everybody.
A little tongue tie.
And if you haven't already, make sure you guys follow us at our social media handles below. And make sure you stick around because we will be answering another Q&J in this video. Alright, so babe, how you feel about like past in relationships? So let's just talk about childhood. Let's just break it down.
Okay.
Childhood and then like exes and stuff like that. So like, how important is it to you to know my childhood and where I came from, how I was raised and everything?
I think it's one of the utmost important things you need to know and understand, because how someone was raised and how they were treated as a child totally manifests in how they handle things as an adult.
Agree. And not that I agree with everything Jamil says. I know you'll probably be like, they always on the same page, but we're not about everything. But
why not?
But I totally agree, because there are some things that I wouldn't be able to completely understand about her personality today, or her way of thinking, or her way of moving, if I did not know that, you know, how she was raised. And I mean, there are different things that mold us into the people we are, and it's our childhood that I think that starts the mold.
And not to quote like Instagram memes, but sometimes they be on point. With the meme that says, be careful with how you talk to your children, because that becomes their inner voice. And I totally believe that, because it's certain things that I remember being told like as a child that maybe were said like not directed or demeaning or meant to be anyway, but they still stay with you for a long time. Sequina actually has something that was said to her.
So my grandmother, loved her to death and everything, she used to call me a motor mouth. And, you know, having a child now, Harper gets it honest. Like, we are chatty little things, but the motor mouth comment has stuck with me so bad that I try not to, like, talk so much. It actually has changed my personality, I think. And I really don't know, because I was told this at a young age. I don't know, had I not maybe had that comment said to me, maybe I would be more chatty like I am with you, because I feel like I could talk Jamil like into a hole, but I don't talk other people.
She wake up talking
into a hole, because I don't want to be labeled as a motor mouth. And like, Harper talks a lot, but I try not to comment on it too much. You know, I just let her, you know, go. As long as she can keep it in the inside voice, girl, keep talking, and I'ma listen. So because I just know that, thinking now, I am 36 and I still remember being called a motor mouth.
Yeah.
So I think that also probably helps Jamil to know why I talk her in a hole, because I'm not like letting loose on anybody else outside of my mom.
She shared that with me. Oh my goodness. She said, well, it's no one else that I feel like I can talk to. I was like, oh, I gotta listen to this.
Well, I really talk. So now, like, I talk to my mom a lot. I talk to Jamil's mom and my friend Erin. I think those are like my 4 people that I could talk in a hole and like have a whole conversation and not hear anything that you guys say about yourself, because I just got to talk.
You have to have those kind of people in your life, though. And
I think that it's very important to know your partner's like trauma. I mean, I know it's hard to discuss childhood trauma, because some people as adults are still processing it and don't even know how to talk about it.
Of course, yeah. So that's really important, and especially if you are looking to raise children together. Because your childhood and how you feel like your parents should or should not have done, that's totally going to come up with how you raise your kids.
And like, if you're spoiled, you were raised spoiled, not spoiled. Like, if you had to like go out and get it, or if it was given to you, those things like build character. And like, when you're raising kids, they can project on your parenting styles.
Yeah.
Because how much do you feel like you know just about everything in my childhood?
I don't want to say everything, because certain things, like, we don't remember everything.
Right.
And you go watch something on TV or something that happened, it could trigger a memory. But I feel like I know, like, your highlight reel. Yeah.
Same.
You don't mind?
Yeah, I think you don't talk about your childhood as much, Like, well, I guess you haven't had too many traumatic experiences. Like, you had some, like, but nothing offhand that I think I can't recall anything that has stuck with you that, like, happened to you when you were a kid that affects your adult life today.
No, I think certain things that, like, I think of, like, my brother and I were very fortunate growing up. We didn't really want for anything. And so I think about, okay, when I pass that down to my children, how do I want that to be reflected back to me, right? Because you can easily have a spoiled child, because you see a lot of these children of, like, famous people, and they got everything that they wanted, and that's just, like, as an example. And they got everything they wanted, but they don't typically achieve the level of success that their parents did. And so it's a balance of, like, I don't want my children to struggle, but I also want them to understand, you know, determination and discipline, because I had to watch, like, my parents really work and fight for their careers and really climb the corporate ladder, and kind of like how that hunger, like, especially in my father, like, I really saw that. And so I think that was instilled in me. And then how can I in turn instill that in my children? Because I think, because I saw him climbing, I had that hunger. But I think my brother, because he's younger than me, he saw more of the success, so he sees it a little differently.
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, I was able to see, like, the progression of, like, cars, of the type of cars they drove, of the type of homes they owned. Where my brother, by the time he was, like, of a certain age to understand what was going on, they had already reached it, baby.
Right.
So it was, like, different.
That is a good point, because, like, you don't want to, like, raise your kids like that, but then you think about, like, Harper and Holland now, like, they will never see, like, the struggle where we live, where Jamilla and I think combined was making, like, $40,000 or something. Like, more than that, maybe 60 combined.
Quit trying to tell a real good story right now.
I think
60 combined.
60 combined. Yeah. Like, when we started there, like, and now, you know, God has blessed us tremendously.
Totally.
But yeah, so I think, like, just to reel it back in, but yeah, I think it's very important to discuss with your partner your childhoods, your trauma. Like, I know you may be processing it, but just as much as you can, or, you know, this is the year of therapy. If you ain't already in therapy, you need to get in therapy.
So what about, like, and I totally agree with that, but what about, like, the juicy stuff, right? Like, the things that I see a lot of people argue the most, of, like, exes. Do you need to know how many partners, like, sexual partners your partner has had?
So for me, like, I would ask you, like, how many sexual partners
you've asked me a number before?
I have, but, like, if you never wanted to give it to me, I wouldn't be offended, if that makes sense. Like, the amount of sexual partners you had would not have determined if I would have continued to date you or not.
Okay, yeah.
Now, my thing is, like, if we are going to be in a setting with some of your sexual partners, you may want to just tap me on my shoulder and say, hey, so...
She say that, right? But it's been times where we were maybe, like, around someone, and then, like, I would maybe ask, well, how do you know them? And then she would start a story, and you had a running joke that my cousin gave her, like, he was...
we went to high school together.
So she hit me with that one time, and I was like... Huh? So you had me around this woman? But it's not something, like, I have never asked you how many sexual partners you've had. I've never been interested. It seemed like it was, like, a large number, and I was just like,
excuse you, I beg your pardon.
I have been around my fair share of the people that she's been with in the past, just because I think being a lesbian is a small circle, and then, like, where she's from, and then the circles we run with in Atlanta is just, like, small. So it's like,
you could easily be at a day party or a pride event and then bump into someone that I went to high school with or whatever. That's the code word for someone that I was possibly intimate with or dated. So...
And then she has a type, right? So some of, like, there's, like, one of her exes that, like, I think she's pretty cool. And I've said this before. So we, like, chat every so often.
And I think, like I said, like, to me, it's not a big deal to know about your sexual partners, but I would, like, I do inquire about, like, why did you break up with that person? Like, what were those relationships like? Because, like, if they were toxic, you almost want to know, like, if you're going to start seeing these traits, or did this person actually mature through their examples of, like, why their other relationships broke up. So I think it's very important to know the type of relationships, the type of breakups, but the sexual partner is your business, you know? But I know some people that's, like, a total deal breaker.
Yeah, they want to know, or they like want names or stuff. Like because it's like we're at a point where we've been together for so long. Like I don't remember. Like maybe she'll have to tell me. Like
I don't remember myself.
I don't. What? You want me to name something from like almost a decade ago? I don't recall.
Right.
So yeah, but I do definitely agree about knowing why you broke up. And then if you're first dating someone and they speak negatively about their ex, that is like a red flag to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Like negative, like what? I'm trying to think.
Like if they talk.
Was I speaking negatively?
Yeah, but you were kind of like still in it. If they're speaking negatively, like, oh, such and such never did this, like, oh, you're such a good woman, my last woman wouldn't do that, or she hated this, or she hated, like, if I'm hearing about this particular person a lot, that's a red flag, because to me it sounds like you haven't healed, you're not over it, you maybe not be ready to move on, you maybe be comparing me to this person.
Right. I think that's the point where I was, like, when we first started dating. I don't think I was talking about the person negatively, but I was in a comparison state, like, they did this, or maybe you should do this, or, you know, vice versa. Like, I was just comparing. And, like, I think that's the thing. Like, there's maybe some stories that you don't want to know about your partner's past, like maybe how the person bonded with your mom. Because I think that, especially in the beginning, does that kind of jeopardize the relationship you have with your partner's mom because you're trying to see, like, oh, they like me better, or, like, you're just trying to figure out how to get in there so you could be the number one partner.
Yeah, I think I don't need to know, like, okay, that your partner had like a special bond with your mom, like that they bake cookies every Sunday or something. Not unless they still do it. Then maybe if we're getting serious, you need to know. But I'm just kind of like on a need to know kind of basis, because typically when you break up with someone, you come out a different person. Hopefully a better person. And so like you're moving on and moving forward for that. So that's certain things like I've never needed to know, like intimate details about. I think one question I recently asked you that I think surprised me too, I forgot what we were talking about, and I was like, well, did you even have good sex with that person?
And I do remember, like, it's almost like when Jamilla asked me questions like that, I just be like, I can't remember, because it's like either she about like, oh, so you remember, or it's like, do you really want to know? Either way, I'm just like, girl, I can't even remember.
I think sometimes I have like a friend like switch, right? So maybe like we were having a conversation about somebody, and then like I wasn't even thinking like as her wife or as her significant other. I was like, was the sex even good? like curious.
Oh,
like
now I actually remember.
You remember the conversation?
Yes.
Yeah. So like I was like genuinely.
Girl, and I think I struggled to answer that question because it was, I don't know.
So yeah, so it wasn't even being like a petty, because I remember thinking like, oh, that was a funny question to ask, but I was just like kind of curious.
All right, so but wait, before we jump into the Q&J, if you guys have like any restrictions about like I'm just curious to know, like,
I am too.
Let's meet in the comments. Like, do you need to know your partner's sexual encounters? Do you need to know names? Do you need to know the amount of bodies they had? Like, is that super important to you, or is it like, girl, I don't want to know?
I think the only time I would absolutely have to know is like, because a lot of people, well, I don't know how the pandemic is going to change things, but people were meeting at work. And so it's like if you dated multiple people at the job, and now we're dating, and if this person happens to be like my manager or my manager's manager, or like something like messy like that, and I'm already choosing to be a little messy to date you knowing that, but whatever. But that kind of information
is a need to know.
That's a need to know. So to your point, like if I'm going to be in rooms with this person,
especially like major rooms where you signing off on my paychecks.
Hello.
So let's jump into the Q&J. The question is, what is the biggest lesson you have learned in your marriage? I think for me is, it's going to tie back into our first episode when we talked about communication. It's choosing your battles and like not holding grudges. Like, because I remember relationships prior where, you know, you would get in an argument and you would almost like start planning your out.
Oh yeah.
With marriage, you don't plan for the out. You try to plan for the solution. Like how can we go through it? So I think that's the biggest thing. Like it's planning for the solution versus the out. Because like I'm in this forever, and like if you guys stay tuned for our next episode, we're actually going to talk about our perspectives on separation and divorce. So, you know, like I said, you plan for what I say, girl?
You say you don't plan for the out, you plan for the solution.
Right. So what's your biggest lesson?
What's my biggest lesson being married? I think what I always say is, okay, so just like a throwback to what we said, is that sometimes you are like a wife, and sometimes you're a mother, and sometimes you're a friend, right? And it's balancing all of those, because sometimes it's a situation that my wife may be going through that I can't be her wife in that moment. And I mean being her wife, that I have to put maybe my feelings aside as a partner and just be a friend. And being a friend and being a partner can be like, some people may say, well, you have to be a friend to be a partner, but what I mean by this is like just listening and respond and not responding, and just being the friend to that person.
Right.
And then even balancing out being a mother and a wife. So it's just balancing all of those hats and all of those jobs, because that can be super tough. And knowing, like, there can be days where I can feel her energy, where I know, like, okay, her capacity as a mother, she's reached it. She's right here. It's
she
like,
need to go tap out.
So then that's when I like, and she does it with me too. And then that's when I have to like grab my children and maybe we go to another room. And it's the same thing with me. Like every single day I take a bath and I have like this extended long skincare routine, and like nobody bothers me.
Girl.
I just go in the bathroom, and that's like my self-care.
I think Harper's the only one that'll bother you.
Oh yeah, she'll come in the room and talk, but I don't want to set up that boundary with her. Like, oh, this is mommy's time, this is mama's time. She doesn't understand that, so I just let her talk her head off, and I just, as long as I'm allowed to continue.
She really only goes in there when I tell her no to something. She just wants to see if mama's on the same page as me or not.
Right, and then I gotta go find you and figure out what page we're on. So yeah, so that's yeah, I think it's just balancing all the hats that come with like with a household and raising kids.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. So let's meet in the comments and let's talk about it
Later.